Welcome everybody to another episode of the In the Paint Show presented by Ballislife. This is Ronnie Flores with co-host Ani Umana. Ani, we're on episode 111 here. We had a crazy weekend of sports. We're going to talk about a lot more than just high school basketball. It's just stuff that, we like to follow and talk about, and a lot of things happening in the world of sports. And it all trickles down to the high school game, really. I mean, all these guys played high school or once high school players. So, I mean, that's the backdrop of what we like to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA. We'll talk a little bit about college football championship, NFL playoffs are about to begin. And of course, big weekend for high school basketball, MLK showcases this upcoming week and weekend. Ani, is there a big MLK showcase like in Dallas or Houston?
No, not really. Just you got district games going on.
Gotcha.
Currently. There's some of the charter and prep schools. They generally run something. But I haven't heard anything as right now. Yeah,
so basically like in Texas, people just stay in their district kind of once they get in their district. There'll be maybe a big non-league game here and there, but people usually stay in their district, right?
Yeah, correct. And like you said, like in February, so when everybody finishes the district, you'll have like warm-up playoff games where you'll see major like non-district opponents. And like a 6A school, big time 6A school may play like a big time 5A school because they're not going to see each other in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. Again, a little different out in California. We do have big MLK events. And, when there's not, obviously, when Omicron and COVID, that's kind of thrown it off a little bit. This week, LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District, has kind of shut down games.
Oh, really?
During the week. It's the second largest public school district in the country. But, there's games still going on sporadically. So we'll see if this weekend happens. Like, we'll talk a little bit about that a little later in the show. But right now, I wanted to get your take. The big news in the top of the NBA is Klay Thompson returns. 31-year-old five-time All-Star has obviously helped the Warriors win many, many games before his injury. He tore his Achilles in the 2020 NBA Finals. Now, that seems like a long time ago. I mean, we've been dealing with COVID.
Yeah, that's pre-COVID, ain't it?
Yeah, 220. That's about right when it started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, March 220, right? A few months after Kobe Bryant died. Unfortunately, that's how you can always remember it. That's how I kind of recall it because he had a famous LA Times cover that day. Everybody wanted to get it. So obviously when the day Kobe passed or the morning of, which would have been after the day he passed on the Sunday, was a Monday morning. So everybody wanted to get the newspaper. Mm-hmm. So that I went everywhere early in the morning, 5 a.m, since it was already sold out. I mean, people bought it all over town. And they came out with the special collector's edition of it. But it's funny when you go back and look at that iconic, like he's kind of that one photo where he kind of rips his jersey, moves his, he's pulling his jersey where he hits a big shot. I think it's against Phoenix. But anyhow.
Playoffs.
Yeah, in the playoffs. So already on that day, if you look in the little fine print down in the story below on the front page, it says, virus has touched California, mysterious virus. So it was already coming. I don't know. Did you know anybody who felt like they got sick? Before people knew about COVID, they're like, I think I already had it 2 months ago. There were some people who definitely said that. It was around, I obviously remember, unfortunately, because Kobe's such a big name, I remember that it's around that time.
Yeah, so a couple of my friends, they got sick, and they're like, this is different from the flu, right? Yeah, okay. And they actually went to New York, so they were like, oh, I just got the flu, I'm really, really sick. Yeah. And so I think it was COVID. Now looking back, this was in November they went,
and
then when the COVID spread and it came to America, we're like, I think y'all had COVID before it was COVID.
Yeah, there was definitely some people that had it. So back to Klay. Seems like it's been a long time. Why don't you give us a rundown of what happened when he came back in that game?
Yeah, so the crowd was electric, and Klay, he had so much energy. he came in, he hit a layup, and every time he made a shot, Klay was just like rooting. He was fired up. He's talking to the crowd. This is the most energetic I've ever seen Klay Thompson. Like, it was an NBA Finals game, and you can just tell, basketball being taken away from him just with the injuries, and then coming back. He was really excited. He was rusty. I think he went 7 for 18 from the field. Hit a couple threes. He had that one nasty dunk that got him fired up. But he was good. He adds another scoring punch to Golden State, and you can just tell like the team was kind of trying to force feed him a bit to get him going. Sure. And but the crowd and just Klay just seemed like he was happy. It was like a kid just in a candy store. I mean, he was really happy. But I want to ask you this question: like, where do you feel that does this make Golden State a clear favorite out west?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the standings, they're right there, obviously, and they're obviously right there without him. So, I mean, them and the Suns are about 30-9. Heading into when we're filming this, and I mean, are the Suns better than they were last year? I don't see. No, I don't see that. Not they had. They're not sneaking up on anybody. I know that.
Right.
People know the Suns have a really good teams, but obviously with CP3 leading them. But when you look at the Warriors, Klay's coming back. So whose minutes are going to get curtailed, and how's that going to work? Is it Jordan Poole? Is it a little bit of Andrew Wiggins? It's like. They have so many good options.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, they're in such a good spot compared to most teams because most people think, oh, they're aging, especially when KD had tore his Achilles and then Klay had got his injuries, a few days apart in the finals or right, around the same time. And people were like, man, this window is gonna close fast. But then Steph's kind of got rejuvenated. He's having a great MVP type season. And then, like you said, now they want Klay back, and it's like they want him back. They want him to succeed. Everybody likes him. He's obviously been an integral part. So, yeah, I think they will be the team to beat. I think they are the team to beat in the West. Obviously, Phoenix will be there. Maybe the Jazz will step up. I don't think Denver has really duplicated what they did last year. Now, maybe they had some injuries, obviously, but they're not. Everybody thought, wow, man, Denver's going to really come on. But obviously, Jamal Murray, has he been injured, Jamal Murray?
Yeah, he's been injured. Yeah, he's still hurt.
Yeah, he's still hurt. So, again, they obviously got the Joker, and he's a great player. But they're barely struggling along, barely above 500. So, it's going to come down to probably one of those two teams realistically. And maybe the Grizzlies might be strong enough, but I noticed a lot of teams are just totaling around 500. Grizzlies, 20-14, Mavs, only 4 games above 500. Lakers are barely treading water at 500 with the Timberwolves and the Clippers. So it's like a lot of average teams.
Right.
I mean, the Lakers seem like they're doing a lot to stay at 500. Like they're using a lot of energy, I guess supposed to say is the right word. You know what I mean?
No, they are.
Yeah. And because everybody's like, oh, the bubble. Well, in the bubble, they had a 2 or 3 month break, so all of them can get kind of rejuvenated. I mean, the bubble was tailor made for LeBron to like.
It really was,
because it wasn't going the same as that if that season would have continued and they just would have had one continuous season. It was like 2 separate seasons. You don't just stop playing. Anybody knows, Ani, you play basketball. You don't just stop playing for 2 or 3 months. Like that's a whole new start. Like especially if you're trying to play at a high level at a college or. After, on a competitive team, you can't really stop for 2 or 3 months. So I think, the Suns are right there, but I do think the Warriors are the favorite. Now, what do you think about their team? Do you think they need to make a move? Do they need to move a piece? Obviously, they got a great asset in Andrew Wiggins. He seems like he's rejuvenated his career. Again, it's so easy to write people off. And it's like, wait a minute, guys, this guy was like supposed to be a once in a decade type player. I don't know if he was that good, but he was looked at that way. And like we write him off, or maybe he's in a bad non-winning situation. So what do you think about that, Andrew Wiggins? And then what do you think about them making a move, or do you think they just need to stay the course as what the roster is right now?
No, I think you're absolutely right about Andrew Wiggins. He's, he at one point he was considered a once in a lifetime type player that was going to come to the league. And even his first few years, his numbers weren't bad at Minnesota. No. They just weren't winning.
Yeah, they just weren't winning. Yeah.
And I think him coming to Golden State, he's played a real viable role, coming in as a secondary scoring option with Klay out. And I don't think they need to really make a move. I think it's just more so make sure everyone's healthy to make this run. I think, like you, I think they are the favorites out west, but I do wonder, with age, right? Klay's not 25 no more. Steph and Dre and all of them, can they last, throughout, the playoffs and going to the finals and playing a potential 6-7 game series? What do their legs look like there? So I think it's more so managing, the workload going into the playoffs and seeing if they can just play it out.
Yeah. And they're going to want the number 1 seed. So I'm sure down the stretch there, like you said, maybe it's going to be like, okay, guys, we need to make a push now. Let's try to get the number 1 seed, because everybody wants the number 1 seed. It's very big in basketball. So yeah, I see that, obviously they have a lot of nice assets. Everybody always says, God, what if they would have drafted Melo instead of Wiseman or something like that? But that's not really what we're here to talk about.
I know, right?
It's more like Klay's coming back. How does he fit? Again, it's going to be, he's a veteran. It's going to be pretty seamless. Everybody seems to be happy. I think people were like, man, this is such a big moment. But the NFL playoffs were going on at the time. And I saw a lot of people like on social media, like, oh, I'm going to watch Klay. And I'm like, guys, the Warriors are good. Like without them, they've been good. Right. I think it was a little dramatic in my book, to tell you the truth. I was like, yeah, this is not like an NBA Finals coming back, oh, he's going to turn this franchise around from, a losing, like they're playing pretty good. So it's nice to see them back. Again, that window seems open. So what do you think this team's window is? I know you kind of mentioned just a few minutes ago, kind of like, they're monitoring the management, but do they have a few seasons? Are they going to go balls to the wall this season, try to win it because they're aging, or do they have a so-called prolonged window now where it looked different when KD got hurt and when Klay got hurt? It's like, this team's going to fall apart.
Right.
That really hasn't happened.
All right. I think they need to go win now. I think you got about 2 or 3 years to win you a championship. Obviously, things can change if, they have the pieces, like they want to trade like a Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, something like that. And then they want to get another star, which is still going to be tricky. But I think you got about 2-3 years at max to win a championship. I think they can win one more. I don't think 2 or 3.
Yeah. No, they're not going to probably win 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so many things have to go right for that to happen.
Absolutely. I just think this 1 year, just one. And then I think we're definitely seeing the shift. You talked about the Memphis Grizzlies, who I really like. They kind of remind me of not as talented at the top, but like the Oklahoma City Thunder with Durant and Westbrook and Harden. Got a lot of good young pieces with Morant, Des Bane, what's my man's name from Michigan State?
I know what you're talking about. Man, his name's escaping me right now. But hopefully Memphis does make a run. So, they have a little bit, like you said, people start figuring them out. I think people look at that team and it's like, oh, John Morant, he's a great piece, but like they have a pretty good team, and they've had some good teams. Yeah, even in the past with the Conley and the Zebo, that group wasn't bad at all. They didn't get over the hump, and this team just needs a nudge to get over the hump. Maybe they need one more player. Maybe they need, after they'll draft another good player or get a package, get a veteran. They're right there. You're right. They obviously, everybody talks about John Moran, and it's like Zion Williams. Zion Williamson. It's like, did the Pelicans, New Orleans make the right move there? Again, we're not going to get too much into that because that's a whole another topic.
I was going to ask you, if you redraft, what would you choose?
Yeah. Oh, how do you pass up Zion at the time?
Right.
It's really hard to say that. We'll get into that one day on this pod and the MDP. We'll go hard on it, but we don't want to go too hard. I want to, as we close this little piece out, I want to ask you, if they win the title, let's say Klay and he's pretty healthy, They maybe, make another run next year, or if they win a title this year or next year. Does that put Klay in the top 75 players of all time? Would he make your list? Do you think that he's not there? And then secondly, Big, who should have been on that list that's not? When you look back at the NBA 75, obviously they had a ceremony for it and a lot of publicity late last year.
I think he's a top 75 player right now. I don't think if he just stays remotely healthy and plays out through his career, I think he'll be fine. Championship or no championship. He has 3 of them, which he'll be good with that. But I think just if he stays remotely healthy, he's fine. But I think currently he's a top 75 player all time. And, arguably, I mean, you could say he's the second best shooter of all time. Numbers may never, match that, but just we haven't seen a shooter like, I mean, obviously Steph's in a whole nother galaxy, but just a shooter like him we haven't seen before.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, there's 2 of them. They play together. It's like I see what you're saying there. I'll take the other angle. I don't think he's played enough games. Again, he's missed 2 seasons basically. But again, if they win one more and he plays a big role, that could change my mind, and they might. I mean, this has been a great, I guess, I don't know if you call it a comeback story, but maybe just a rejuvenation. It's like they looked like, man, this team's falling apart. Even Steph wasn't healthy during those finals.
No, he wasn't. He was
limping around. So it's like, whoa, is this team really aging in front of us? But they've done a good job. It's very interesting to see. And like you're right, Klay Thompson already has historic 3-point numbers. Obviously, everybody shoots the 3-pointer now in the last 5 years or whatnot. So the numbers are going to be high. But yeah, I'm on the notion that he's got to win another one and be a big role to be in my top 75. But hey, if you think he's in the top 75, I have no problem with that. So let's move on to the NFL. Again, that was on Sunday night, this past Sunday night. And then that Sunday, there was a lot of action. The teams trying to get in the NFL playoffs. Now, let me ask you a question real quick. I don't know if you like the NFL as much as you like the NBA, or if you grew up liking the NFL, if your family did, but do you like that to get in the playoffs and to make the playoffs? It's like really hard. Like sometimes I think of the NBA, it's like, wait for the NBA playoffs. Yeah, they'll be in the playoffs. They'll watch them then. Like, dude, it's balls to the wall to get in the NFL playoffs. And like, it just has a different feel because less teams make their playoffs and it just seems harder. Is that why football, you think, is obviously it's on Sunday, it's a popular sports once a week, but do you think that's one of the reasons why it's so meaningful in a 1-game setting?
Oh, absolutely. The 1-game setting, and just obviously, compared to 82 games to play 17 now. I like it because, when you go watch a football game, guys are really trying to go out there and play because every week does matter.
Surely matter.
We've seen multiple times where a team that won the Super Bowl doesn't make it to the playoffs the following year. In the NBA, that you don't really see that. I love how the NFL is kind of it's just structured just with the every game really matters. I love that they added another game, and then like the playoffs is just win or go home. So it's just like for every Cowboy game I've ever gone to, even though each year fans think we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Well, the Cowboys haven't won a playoff game since you were how old? 4?
Basically, or we'll win a wild card game, and then that's it. You know what I mean? Like,
Jesus, yeah. I mean, Cowboy Nation is crazy. I get it. I mean, I obviously remember it was around following the Cowboys in their last run, so I know how the Cowboys fans feel because I know how big that was. I mean, with Emmett, Nate Newton, Irvin, those guys, and they kind of had their Golden State Warriors moment. I mean, it was like the 97 or 98 playoffs, Michael Irvin got basically almost like partially or temporarily paralyzed in a playoff game. I think it was against Carolina. And like, you knew the run was over. Like, I knew their run was over. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Like, Michael was probably going to retire. Troy was torn it at the end. So, yeah, very crazy parallels how that worked because they had a core that stayed together for like 5 or 6 years and they were winning. With obviously Troy, Emmett, and they had a great lineman, Nate Newton, and a great defense. But yeah, so I feel for the Cowboys fans, and obviously it's funny because I grew up a Raider fan. So let's talk about Sunday night's game. Obviously, Klay's playing, so we're both, but it's hard to keep your eyes off this football game. You had the Chargers and the Raiders at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Ani, just take us what you saw and like what you thought of the game.
It was a fun game. Raiders won 35-32. Yeah. Derek Carr was phenomenal. I feel bad for Chargers fans because that's like 20 plus games in 3 years that they lost by like 8 points or less.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel no sympathy for Chargers fans.
I know you don't.
But yeah, I mean, the Chargers are just one of those teams. It's funny. I guess it happens a little bit in the NBA. They just figure out a way to lose. Like, teams figure out a way to win. Like, the Chargers will figure out a way to lose. Dude, I mean, if you go back to this game, I mean, put it in perspective. Again, as a Cowboy fan or somebody that lives in Cowboy country, like, the Raiders haven't been that successful. They've had a lot of bad things. I mean, Ani, in your adult life and even in your teenage years, they've only been in the playoffs twice in 20 years. Again, there's these big moments you have, and there's big moments in basketball, but in football really seems to be big moments where if you succeed, like success follows, or if you fail, you're going to be in failure for a long time. Yeah. It just, for whatever reason, the NFL is built like that, or football is built like that, I should say. So when the Raiders got in that Super Bowl, and I remember I was down in San Diego, it was in the 2003 Super Bowl for the 2002 season. I was hanging out, having a great time. It was against Tampa Bay, and like the Raiders were just not prepared.
No, that was a bad. I remember that game.
They were not prepared. They had a player, Barrett Robbins, go crazy. He missed the game. He kind of tripped out. He went across the border into Mexico, and it just was all bad. And they were not prepared. They didn't play well. And since then, they haven't really done anything, right? So let's fast forward now 19 years later, and they made the playoffs once in 2016, and then they moved to Vegas to revitalize themselves a bit. It's a new start, fresh start. And then they, like we talked about in our last In the Paint episode, they had all this crazy crap happening with the players. Like, they can't control themselves, but here they're down on a one game setting to get in. And then, excuse me, they had a very interesting scenario.
Yeah, they did.
Where they could have tied, or they had if they win, it's a different scenario. So if they tie with the Chargers, they both get in. So did you think at any time there was going to be a tie, or did you think like one team wants to win?
I always thought one team wanted to win. I think for my just like to see something different, I wanted a tie. I just wanted to tie just for it to happen and the storylines and stuff. And just me reading about the bets that were made for a tie when people started to realize that could be the scenario. And obviously, like for both teams, both of them getting to the playoffs would be huge. So, when you kind of put your conspiracy theories hat on, like you're like, if both teams made the playoffs, that'd be good for both programs. But I always thought both teams, wanted to win. I didn't think they neither wanted to go for a tie. If a tie happened, it just would have happened. Yeah. But I thought it was just very interesting. I think I read where one guy did end the tie, he would have won $850,000. Like,
yeah. And it was he almost got it. Like, this guy was probably at the edge of his. Oh my! I can't imagine watching that game because it's just an awesome game, and you got to give credit to the Chargers. They were down 15. Mm-hmm. They tied the game basically at zero at the end of the game on the last play. Justin Herbert, I mean, he was really throwing that rock. He was 34 for 64. That's just amazing to me that NFL quarterbacks now throw like 60 times a game, 70 times a game.
Right.
That's not really how I grew up watching football, but it's okay. I enjoy it. I mean, especially if I've been to Allegiant Stadium, it was against the Bears. It was a great atmosphere. I could only imagine what the atmosphere for a win or go home kind of game is. Now, obviously, like you said, the Raiders had a lot of incentive. People don't think that, but if you're the Raiders and you get a tie, you're going to Kansas City. Yeah. If you win, you're going to Cincinnati. So I don't think all those bettors that you're talking about were really looking at that. Like, if you're looking at the Raiders, I want to play Cincinnati. Yeah. So, yeah, you don't want to – Kansas City's mopped them twice this year. So why do you want to go away from Kansas City? Say that again?
And I'm staying away from Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a defensive coordinator, if you're a franchise, you don't want to face Patrick Mahomes on the road. You want to avoid him until as late as you can, you know? So I really didn't get this huge tie thing, maybe because both teams are mediocre, really. Both franchises are kind of mediocre, and they both want to get in the playoffs. But I think the Raiders definitely didn't want to see Kansas City. Now, how about in the overtime? Did you think like, okay, they're going to try to win, but when it gets close to it, they're going to kind of let it go. They'll just run out the clock. And then the Chargers coach calls a timeout. Like, what did you think of all that?
I thought it was wild. I really thought it was wild. So I kind of lied. I did think both teams wanted to win, but during when it got into overtime, I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
This is scripted. It's a little scripted. So I thought it was just wild. I really thought there actually may be a chance that they're going to go for the tie. Yeah. And I never looked at it the way like you did. Like, obviously you don't want to go see Patrick Mahomes. I kind of got into the theatrics of it. I'm not gonna lie.
The safe play. The safe, don't make a mistake again. If you turn the ball over, somebody runs back a fumble or something, you're screwed, you lose. So I get it. You don't want to – teams sometimes don't want to lose more than they want to win. They just don't want to make the mistake to lose. So I get what you're saying there. I totally see that. But then the Chargers had to get a stop. And then they got a timeout and maybe get their right personnel on, but then they didn't get the stop. So people are just saying, hey, they just didn't get the stop. That's the timeout doesn't make a big difference. But some people thought it did, and some people are calling for the coach's head and things like that. And it's like, man, their defense needed to get a stop, but they didn't. And then the Raiders, obviously you want to get a stop because, again, if you get them for a loss of 2 instead of a gain of 7 or something like that, a gain of 6 or 7, then that's a 55-yard field goal instead of a 47-yard. And then that changes the dynamics a bit. Somebody kicking a 56-yard field goal, 54, comparing to kicking a 47, to win a game. That's a little bit more pressure. Again, anything over 52, 53, the pressure starts building up. But, I mean, the Raiders advance. So they're in the playoffs. Steelers fans, if they would have both tied, it would have knocked the Steelers out. So everybody in the Midwest was going crazy. everybody on Twitter in the Midwest is going crazy. The Steelers are obviously a successful franchise, quote unquote, successful franchise compared to the two ones we're talking about. But at the end of the day, the Steelers get in. They face Kansas City. So the top seed is the Tennessee Titans. They're the one team that gets the bye. Raiders get the 5th seed. They're at the Bengals in the 4-5 game. The 3-6 is Buffalo and New England. And then over in the NFC, Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers get the bye when the new playoff format. Obviously, 2 teams don't get a bye no more. In the 2-7 game, it's Tampa Bay minus AB, obviously. As we talked about our last spot against the 7-seed Eagles. And then you got the Cowboys playing the Niners in that old school kind of rivalry in the NFC, the 3-6. And then the Rams get in, as we said, 4-5 against the Arizona Cardinals. So, just quick highline before we move on. What do you see there in the NFL playoffs? Do the Raiders have a chance to win the game? Is your Cowboys gonna do anything? What's going on?
I think the Raiders actually have a chance to go to Cincinnati and win. I think I actually like Raiders have always been my second favorite team just because I've always felt for them. They've been so bad for so long. Obviously, they've had the seasons where they've been okay, but like I want them to win. In the NFC, I think it's definitely a toss-up of who kind of makes it out there. I think Dallas is a sneaky pick. obviously I'm biased because I am a Cowboys fan, but I do feel that Aaron Rodgers does make it over the hump, and I think he gets to the Super Bowl this year. I really like how Green Bay's been playing and how they're kind of clicking on all cylinders.
Wow.
But I think Cowboys. I think they'll beat the Niners. I think it'll be a close one. I hope we can.
That means they go to see Tom Brady on the road, most likely.
See, in that
playoff.
Right, and then I know they played each other in week 1, and that ended in a very close one. So that would be interesting to see. I don't know how that goes, but I do feel like Green Bay makes it out in the NFC. Yeah. In the AFC, I go with my boy Patrick Mahomes. I think Kansas City is so dangerous, especially in the playoffs, and I think he has a chip on his shoulder, especially from previous year. And I think Kansas City's like peaking at the right time.
Okay, yeah, Kansas City didn't have a vintage regular season. They've had some injuries. Mahomes had a couple bad games. Again, I think he was playing like at such a Superman, Michael Jordan level, Steph Curry level last year. It's like he just came down on the pack a little bit.
Right.
So I kind of agree with you. I mean, he's still really dangerous. Like you said, the Raiders don't want to see him. People don't want to play at Kansas City. That's a pretty good home environment. And I agree with you. Green Bay has one of the biggest home court advantages because it gets cold, it gets colder, and it's freezing in Lambeau right now. So as long as they're at home, they have a big advantage. So, Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers in an NFC title game at the frozen tundra would be nuts. And then, like you said, either one of those guys against Mahomes and the NFL, even though they have a lot of problems, in the greater, media and in the greater public, there a lot of people like to down the NFL. They still put out a crazy good product.
Right.
I mean, absolutely. A product that people want to see. Again, people have talked about the vaccines with Aaron Rodgers and his.
Oh yeah.
But it's like that's all forgetting once he plays against Tom Brady in Lambeau Field.
No.
Like, people are going to watch that. Hands down. So we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, we'll touch back up on it. And then that was all on Sunday. So on Monday, we have a college football game. And people kind of forgot about it a little bit. I think because of the time off between the semifinals. The semifinals in college football are not really memorable. They're always on the 31st of the year of December. Yeah. And people are kind of laying low, especially during the COVID. People are really laying low right now. On the 31st, everybody's relaxing. They just come on, watching basketball games all over town and are traveling for the holidays. Seems very low key. I don't remember. I mean, the playoffs, college football playoffs, been around since 2014. I don't really remember any memorable semifinal games. They don't come to mind like, hey, Ani, did you watch? Do you remember that semifinal game? Like, they're not really that big. So people kind of forgot about it. And especially we had all this going on with Klay. We had all these other things going on with the NBA, and then you had the NFL last game of the regular seasons were so good. Especially that Raider game was so good that like Monday was kind of a hangover day a little bit. Mm-hmm. But people were kind of saying, this game is boring. They kind of want to see that Derek Carr type shootout with Herbert again. But like college football is not built like that. These two teams were not built like that. I actually love the game. I like defense. Do you like the air it out offenses or do you like the smash mouth defense? I had no problem with the defense. I thought the game was great.
I like the air it out offense. So I'll be honest.
You like Mahomes and those guys, yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love it. I took a nap during the game. So between the first and second quarter, I took a nap. I was like, this game is a little too slow, a little too physical for me. But it got better. It got better. And the fourth quarter was great. There was a lot of big time plays going on. I prefer air it out offense, just watching, just gunsling and just go. But I do appreciate. I think I do appreciate kind of, you can say like the old schooly type, smash mouth, punch it, punch in the mouth. What did you think of just Georgia's defense just yesterday?
So obviously we're talking about this game. It was a great game. Georgia and Alabama. Obviously, Alabama's pretty much been in the college football playoff pretty much on your whole adult life. I mean, since 2009, they've just been dominated. Either the bowl games or the playoff, which again started a few years after that. And Georgia's defense just played awesome the whole season. Really, they had I think one player who was no longer on the team, who they lost, but coming in, they had like an all-time defense linebacker, Nakobe Dean, D lineman Jordan David. I mean, that defense was really good. They were holding them. The field goal, obviously, Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner. They were kind of rushing him on throws, obviously. Neither offense really got settled in. Stetson Bennett from Georgia, the quarterback, the first walk-on to start in a college football playoff title game. That was pretty interesting. And again, like we said, Bama's dominated this so much. And Nick Saban is basically the greatest coach of all time. If he's not, he's number 2 to Bear Bryant. I mean, they're right there. So Alabama's, beaten the Dogs 7 straight times heading into this game, including the 2017 title game, which was kind of memorable. They won it in overtime on a deep throw. So Kirby Smart, the Georgia coach, was 0-4 against his old boss. So there was a lot of good storylines there. And like you said, you and a lot of other of the younger generation was just kind of catnapping through the game. It wasn't very exciting. And the Dogs have always been good. I grew up a big Georgia fan. I like Georgia football. I like Hines Ward, who later played for the Steelers. He played quarterback, receiver, and running back in college. They were terrific. They had a Garrison Hurst, who became an all-pro back with the 49ers. Guys I grew up watching, they were awesome. Champ Bailey was obviously an all-pro with the Denver Broncos. He was a great player. He was great. He played both ways in college. It was unbelievable. So they've always had good players, but they've always never could get over the hump. It's been a long time. They won their first national championship with last night's victory, which they won in a lot closer game than the final score. I think was 32-18, but it was closer than that. Again, the fourth quarter was the difference. So it was 9-6. They were trailing. Then they blocked the field goal. And after they blocked that field goal, their defense just kind of took over. And they just took over the game. They outplayed Alabama big time in the fourth quarter. Zeus White scored on a 1-yard run to put them up. And then Stetson had a crazy play, Stetson Bennett, where he was kind of ruled a fumble. Alabama took over on their 15-yard line, and they went in. When that fumble happened and Alabama scored, what were you thinking right there, Ani?
I thought Alabama was going to kind of take over. I thought that was their game. I thought momentum really shifted at that point.
Yeah.
And especially when they scored, because like you said, Alabama has been dominating for so long.
Yeah.
So especially when the tide kind of turns their way, going kind of later in the game, they've been there before, especially Nick Saban, and just, that's the coach. So I thought, the game was going to start kind of gearing towards, I would say Alabama blowout, but just, like a 2-score deficit they were going to get into.
Interesting. Yeah. It's very interesting how this game played out because, again, I think, like you said, you just hit a nail on the head, is Alabama's been so good for so long. They've dominated college football since basically Pete Carroll left USC. And it's kind of like they were the underdog. Georgia was the betting favorite, but it didn't feel like that to nobody. People were just kind of assuming Alabama was going to do it again. So when that play happened, I think you're right. They scored. But then all of a sudden, Stetson Bennett just kind of like woke up. And they scored on 3 plays. Freshman A.D. Mitchell on a bomb. He caught a beautiful catch. It was right in coverage. So they took a 19-18 lead. They pounded the ball from then. And then he went to his number 1 target, the tight end, to kind of seal the game with 3:33 to go. Tight end kind of like screen pass, and they won the game. First title in 41 years. I can't believe it's been that long since Georgia's won, but they did it, and it was a terrific feel for Georgia. You could see Georgia's fans really enjoyed and appreciate that championship. Again, I'm not a huge Georgia fan per se. I'm a fan of their players. The players they've had over the years. And I'm definitely not an Alabama fan, so I felt nothing there. But, it seems like the Georgia fans and people in the state of Georgia were really happy.
Yeah, no, they were. And my one of my close friends, back in Tyler, Texas. We call him Elijah. He called me just, very excited. He's a big time Georgia fan, and he's from Atlanta. So when Georgia won, they say he was damn near in tears. I mean, there's a lot of like diehard Georgia fans that didn't think this moment would actually happen. So it was it's kind of crazy that it's been since 1980. What was that?
Yeah, 1980. And I followed Herschel Walker all the way through his career, and I was a little young when he came into the college scene, but he was the biggest star people had known about. Like he was well known all over. He was like a godsend in college. I mean, he's bigger than Bryce Young. He's bigger than anybody now. He was like a savior. It's just kind of interesting how that works out with Stetson Bennett. Like he's a walk-on,
right?
He played really good in the fourth quarter. Again, the defense took over, but Herschel Walker was the number one recruit in the country. He's like the most physically gifted back people had ever seen. I don't know if you ever watched like Herschel Walker's SEC Storied or anything about him. Like he looks like he was cut from like a mold above. Like he was like 6'2", 220 with like not an ounce of fat on him, running like a 10-200 meters. Like at 18 years old, it was like ridiculous. But he came in like as their fifth or sixth string back. Number one recruit. Again, this is 40 years ago. Things were a little different. Everybody didn't look at freshmen as like the saviors like they do now. Mm-hmm. So, he was the fifth, about the fifth or sixth string back. That's the folklore. That's the story. And then it's like, once he got in the first game against Tennessee, it was just like, okay, yeah, this guy's going to take over. So they won every single game. And like, he, never left the lineup. And college football, like you said, Ani, you like to air it out. It was so basic then, and Herschel got the ball so many, like 300 carries in each of his 3 seasons. Wow. And they were in the national title hunt all 3 seasons. They won it as a freshman year, which he should have won the Heisman. Again, they weren't going to give the Heisman to a freshman then. And then his sophomore year, they lost on a bomb in the Sugar Bowl to Dan Marino in Pitt. That was the only loss. And then the next year, they lost to Penn State in the Sugar Bowl, which was 2 undefeated teams. So he was right there 3 times. So, yeah, that's been a long time. There's a lot of Georgia fans who weren't even alive. I was very young and following all their teams. And I have a lot of games on tape of Georgia then. And I'll just tell you this, I don't get into it, but it's a lot different world and a lot different fan base and just what they showed and displayed in their images, like on TV. Mm-hmm. Totally different world than 1980. I just can't believe it's been that long and that the world's changed that much. It's pretty crazy. I didn't even think about that when I was young. Like I'd watch this game. Like you'd see a Confederate flag. It was like it was not a big deal.
Oh, wow.
Again, wow. Obviously, it's just a different time, but like you realize how much time has passed by. Like in 40 years, you'll be 65, like
right. He's 69 and like I'm gonna be like, whoa,
what's going on here? Yeah. Just imagine if your team didn't win for another 40 years. So I could see where the Georgia's fans are on that, obviously great moment for them, but one of the best defenses. So speaking of that defense, let's talk about Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner. His first multiple interception game. Ani, were you a little surprised that they got to him, they put pressure on him and it affected him? Or do you expect just, hey, if you have a good defense and you pressure the quarterback, that'll happen to anybody?
Yeah, I definitely think, I kind of got to follow Georgia's defense a little bit. And I knew they were going to, when I started seeing the first quarter, how much they're kind of creating some havoc and throwing some different things at them, I thought it was going to be a long day for Bryce. So I wasn't surprised by the multiple interception. There was some times early in the first half that you thought he could potentially have thrown an interception. I think in the first drive, there was that fumble that they rolled back because they said he threw it. But I mean, they got into him early. They did get into it early, and I was like, it's going to be a long day for him. I wanted to see how he could adjust, but I mean, they just got to him quick and they made him throw a lot of passes, fading away and stuff like that. So I wasn't surprised by it. I think Georgia's had a hell of a scheme and just a game plan going into how to just kind of just make him feel rushed a little bit. And he hasn't the whole season. So you kind of got to see how he looks like under that type of pressure. And for any quarterback, I mean, it's hard when every time you're going up the pass and you got guys just kind of run at you and kind of get into your personal space more so than usual. So yeah, I wasn't too surprised when I saw in the first quarter. I was like, it could be a long day for him.
Yeah. Again, any quarterback. Yeah, you're right. They made him look like a good quarterback because he is a good quarterback, but a little bit more down to earth, like you said, a little bit more average than you put pressure on a quarterback. And again, if they're always in shotgun, they're passing all the time. You can tee off. So that was I think it was a good performance. I don't think he played that bad, but like you said, he wasn't comfortable at any time. And Stetson definitely wasn't comfortable later in the game. I mean, he was running for his life on a couple of plays. He never really set his feet in the first half, but he stepped it up. And when he made that mistake, he kept saying, hey, I don't want to be the guy, the reason why we lost that game. And he stepped it up big time. So, as this college football season closes, a couple things, Ani, is the expansion of the playoff. They have a 12-year deal through 2025. They're not close to an agreement. Like we said, the semifinals ain't really been that good, in my opinion. But two questions. Do you think the dominance of the SEC is good? And then second of all, do you think they need to expand the playoffs? Or is that just going to continue to kill the other bowl games? Like we talked about in our last In the Paint show, the bowl games have been kind of a smorgasbord, not very interesting. Nobody's paying attention to them. The players are sitting out in many regards.
Right.
You don't know what you're getting. And then now we got COVID. So many of them are canceled. So what do you think about expanding the playoff? And what do you think about, SEC's basically dominating it?
I think expansion would be good. Like you said, no one really remembers the semifinals. So it would be interesting to see with the expand the playoffs, how it can be more interesting, I guess.
More entertaining.
Yeah, more entertaining. Maybe there is a way there isn't. But I'm all for expanding it for sure. And SEC football just kind of just very dominant right now. And later on the show we're going to kind of talk about a league kind of similar to the SEC. But I think SEC is just, they're getting the best players. They got the best teams right now.
Not that big a deal. I don't think it's too huge of a deal.
Right.
College football's still popular. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, if that's what you're saying.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. And I think, obviously, you would like to see more of a mixture, but they're the best teams. And at the end of the day, it's not killing. Yeah, it's not killing college football. So, it is what it is.
Step your game up, basically.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like going to a nightclub and seeing a pretty girl and a guy snatches her before you do. I mean, like, hey,
right. It's what it is.
It is what it is sometimes. I agree with that. You got the other teams, other programs, other conferences have to step their game up. I think you're right. I mean, I think Georgia's been very good. Like we said, it's just Nick Saban has just been like on another level that we've never seen before. Obviously, SC had their run. Nebraska had their run with Tom Osborne. Miami had their run with multiple coaches, but like this guy's just dominating on another level. And as far as the college football playoff, I think we got to revisit that at some point because it got to tie into like why the players are not going to play in it. Is there any incentive to play in it if you're not playing for the championship? And then that goes to our next topic a bit is Bryce Young, Stetson Bennett, these other guys. They're on TV. They're in a big moment. NIL. Now, obviously, we know Bryce Young has some legitimate endorsement deals. But I want to put you on the spot right now, Ani. Who would you want if you had a company? Who would you want as your client, or who would you want to endorse? Bryce Young or Stetson Bennett?
Stetson Bennett. The whole walk-on thing, like you can sell that because it makes because it's normal. Like he's just like your average guy that just got a chance, and then that that is very attractive to the public, right? So definitely I would take Stetson Bennett with a heartbeat because the public can familiarize with him more. So then Bryce Young, nothing against him. It's just Bryce Young just kind of has this more, have damn near a flawless season to the championship. And but yeah, definitely Stetson Bennett. I would
I understand what you're saying. I think that's why people like Steph Curry so much, because when you look at, he's not a anomaly, he's not a freak of nature. So when you look at like the Greek Freak, or you look at Kevin Durant, it's like, they're not normal. Like Kevin Durant doing at 6'11", like it's not normal.
Right.
When you look at Steph, you're like, wait a minute, I could maybe do that. I mean, that's, I'm not saying me and you could do it, but the average kid might say, hey, one day I could be like that,
Absolutely.
It resonates. And I think Stetson resonates. Again, we go back to the NIL thing. That's going to be a huge thing going forward. It's going to, and Nick Saban talked about it, it's basically going to determine where people go to college. I mean, so if you're an elite tier athlete, it ain't going to be, oh, well, maybe I can get some NIL deals if I go to college. It's going to be, which NIL deals are you guys going to help me set up? That's what this is all about. Now, I may not be intended for that, but that's what it's quickly turning into. Again, the NIL legislation for the NCAA went in July of 2021, because obviously they were going to have a big problem on their hands. Well, some schools can do it and others can't. So they just made a sweeping, because it was legislated in certain states that NIL was going to begin, or the right to have the freedoms and the rights and the liberties to pursue an endorsement deal. So the NCAA made that move where, like, okay, everybody can, partake, but it's quickly turned into, where am I going to go to college? Where can I get an NIL deal? I think there's other reasons to go to college. I know they are, weather, alumni, where your parents went, depth charts, things like that. But NIL, do you think it's pretty much up there at the top of the list, pretty close? Again, for the elite.
Yeah, I think it's a big time deciding factor for especially those 4 and 5 star kids. Even talking to a decent amount. Obviously, they may not put that in the interview, like in a recruitment interview, right?
Sure.
For now, we'll see. but NIL deals and what they could schools could potentially help them get. That's a big thing. That's a big thing, even for guys like in the. I'm kind of jumping a little bit, like in the transfer portal. I mean, there's guys that want to see what NIL deals that could potentially be up to get. But I think NIL is a huge deciding factor. Yeah. And I was going to ask you the question, quickly. And I think I was going to ask you a question. Just will this create more of a gap between the high majors and the mid majors, or like the SEC schools, and will the availability, like what NIL deals they can get to their players, will this create more of a gap?
Yeah, I think it will, because the bigger schools generate more revenue, so hence generate more interest, hence generate more alumni donations, hence generate more alumni that be around the program. So I think so, because it's going to be a point where, people used to think that, like, college alumni and people with a lot of money in their pockets, that college athletes in the 70s and 80s, even into the 90s, like, hey, that guy's associated with me. He hangs out with me, or he comes to my establishment. He eats at my establishment. I got him a job, or whatever, a really plush job. It was kind of like an ego and status thing. So I think that's just right now, it's just going to transfer over to, hey, we can offer him this through NIL. And it's the same kind of ego player. It's the same kind of throwing your money around, throwing your weight around. So to answer your question, I think, yes, it's something. Now, again, you may have certain options. You may only have certain options, but if you're the Herschel Walkers, the Bryce Youngs, the Amani Bateses of the world, you're going to have the options to go where you want. And it's going to be based on which projected revenue you think that school can offer you, or bring it. Like, and obviously they're not going to pay you, but go get an endorsement deal. But that's what a public thinks. Because we got to remember, a lot of the public still thinks, unfortunately, they're not schooled on this. They still think they always say, yeah, we can get paid now. Oh, the players can get paid now. It's like, nobody's paying them. They're supposed to go get an endorsement deal from another company. So the NCAA is not paying anything. The colleges are not paying anything, but it has that perception. So yeah, I think it's going to, unless something changes, it's going to grow the gap. It's going to determine so much. And on that note, you can go back to our In the Paint episodes 104 66 and number 31. If you go to whether you go to SoundCloud, iTunes, you go to Megaphone, make sure to check those episodes out. We talk a lot about NIL with some very knowledgeable guests. Again, that's 104, 66, and 31. And speaking of that, Ani, On3, which is kind of the new recruiting network, actually came out with something pretty interesting. They're coming out with NIL valuations for high school and college athletes. And it's not really a tracker of like how many off NIL deals like Bryce Young or Stetson Bennett has. It's just the goal is, I guess, to set the standard market value for these guys. Quick highline note. What is your thought about that? And then what is your thought about their NIL top 100 rankings that they came out with?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting, kind of looking at how they kind of ranked it and how they have their price point, just like media, like major publications guys got on. And football, college football, and just football in general, like I think quarterback had a higher deal on it. Just their overall, just how they ranked and they got their numbers is very interesting. I thought, the rankings were interesting. We've seen Bronny James at 6.1 million. I can see that. LeBron James' son. I mean, he played in Dickies Arena, and he almost filled the whole place up, like where he goes. So I can, and then plus the social media platforms like the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, like following anything like that. But I think some of it's a little bit, it's a little too hot. Yeah, inflated. Yeah,
inflated, or I don't know if that's the right word. I think that's a word we're coming in, but it could be a little bit more like artificial. A word. Okay.
Yeah. I would say artificial for sure. I don't see majority of guys getting to that number that they have. Right. Now the rankings may be true. I don't think the numbers
that correlate with the ranking.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. And again, go check that out on on3.com. It's obviously the new database, recruiting database. Obviously, there's Rivals 247. We've talked about those a lot over the course of this podcast, and obviously ESPN recruiting. But yeah, the NIL top 100. Again, Bronny James number 1. I could see that.
Yeah.
Mikey Williams, another high school basketball player, came in number 2. Very interesting. Bryce Young 3. So Arch Manning, who's obviously Peyton Manning's nephew, he's in high school. And again, we talk about that. They were supposed to have a game against Bronny this past week, but that game got canceled because it was being on TV because of COVID protocols. Sierra Canyon didn't make the jump. Sierra Canyon didn't go to the event. But again, Bryce Young. When I look at Bryce Young, again, we talked about the NFL quarterbacks. Bryce Young has a big decision to make because he's not eligible for the NFL draft yet. So he comes back. He's going to have a lot of endorsements. He's the returning Heisman Trophy winner. Now, I'm not saying he should sit out and just collect his money or wait for the NFL draft, but is Mikey Williams more valuable than Bryce Young? I'm not really sure. I get why Mikey Williams is valuable, but Bryce Young's on primetime TV a lot.
Yes.
He's going to be on primetime TV a lot tomorrow. Mikey Williams has not been on that platform. We can say what we want. He's on TikTok. He's on Instagram. He's huge. Bryce Young, that a person could just turn on the TV and find Bryce Young. I mean, if you're just a general casual college football fan, you're probably going to watch an Alabama game at some point.
Right.
Whether it's a big weekend game or a holiday weekend game or the college football playoffs. I just don't, like you said, I don't know about the value there. I'm not really sure, besides Bronny, that any player is now bigger than Stetson Bennett. I just don't. I don't see.
I agree.
That's how quickly he became a name, overnight. So I don't know. This could be all over the place. Again, it's new. I still think NIL is very new to come up with a formula to put valuations on people. It's only been around 6 months, really. I mean,
yeah.
Now the thought of it has been around a long time. What's the value of a player? That's been around a long time, but the actual to go get a NIL deal. It's been around less than a year. So go check those out when you get a chance. We'll revisit this in a little more in-depth one day. We'll probably have a whole pod on it because it's such a big topic. It resonates. It's so important to athletes and parents that follow our pod. But we just wanted to touch up on that. I'm with you. Stetson Bennett, I could see him doing shaving commercials. Right. He could endorse a lot of things again because he looks like aw shucks. Like, oh man, I just led Georgia to the championship. Oh, I didn't expect this. Oh man, I was, like just the way he came off, it was like, oh dude, yeah, I'll take a hot chick out. Why not? Like that's when he came off to me. It was so like nonchalant because he just looked, like you said, like an average player. He's not like this godsend 5-star quarterback that came down for the heavens. You know what I mean?
Or Herschel Walker.
He ain't Herschel Walker. No, he's not Herschel Walker. So it's very interesting. So again, we'll revisit this in a future In the Paint pod. As we obviously want to close out the show with some high school. There's for the third straight week, there's a new number 1 in the FAB 50. Sunrise Christian of Ballard, Kansas, is now in the number 1 spot. We talked about SEC dominance. Now we're talking about National Interscholastic Basketball Conference dominance. They've had a big weekend. It was LaPorte Invitational. So all the teams were in LaPorte, Indiana, where La Lumire's at. They defeated Montverde, in the second session of the NIBC to avenge an earlier loss, 71-61. It was a really, really big moment for that program. Now, last season, they also beat Montverde for one time, but it was a little different scenario because Montverde didn't have a loss at that time, and they had already beat Sunrise, just like this team did. But Sunrise had a loss, but this time Sunrise has not lost to any other team. So they were able to elevate to number 1. They obviously deserved it. And last year in 2020-21, Montverde, they stayed number 1 after that loss, and they went on to beat Sunrise 2 more times, and they only lost that 1 game. So this time around, they got that 71-61 win. It was a big second quarter. They outscored Montverde 22-11, 42-28 at halftime lead, and they kind of never really looked back. They kind of dominated the game. Kansas-bound Grady Dick had a double-double. He had 20 points. Scotty Middleton kind of had a really good game. I really like Scotty Middleton. I watched him quite a few times at junior camps and at the Pangos camp. He was 7% from the field, 19 points. And then Montverde closed out the week with a couple more wins. So right now, the NIBC standings, IMG and Sunrise are at 6-1 in conference play, and Montverde and La Lumiere are 5-2. So the new FAB 50 rankings, the order is Sunrise number 1, again with the split with Montverde. Number 2 is now Duncanville. Duncanville obviously stays in front of Montverde because of the head-to-head win. Duncanville, Texas, is a public school. Another NIBC school is number 3, now IMG. They own a 1-point win over Montverde. They also have lost to Sunrise, and they split with Oak Hill. As we talked about in last week's pod, they lost to Oak Hill down at the City of Palms semifinal game. And then Montverde comes in number 4. They have 3 losses. And again, that's another reason why they dropped lower than IMG and Duncanville. They have 3 losses. The third loss, obviously, is the Sunrise split, and then they lost to IMG and Duncanville. So those top teams are kind of like you said, kind of like the SEC, beating up on each other a little bit at the top. They're the dominant. Those teams are at the top. Then you have Camden in New Jersey at number 5, 5-0, and then Sierra Canyon, which hasn't played. Now, Sierra Canyon is scheduled to play at the Bass Pro in Springfield, Missouri, with some other top teams this weekend. I mean, they're scheduled to go as of now, as we're filming this pod. Again, with COVID, you never know what can happen.
You never know.
But as of now, they didn't get to play Arch Manning and Newman last week, but they're all scheduled to go. If everything's okay, they're going to leave on Wednesday down to Missouri. And then Corona Centennial, the top 2 teams in California, they ran off the top 7. So, what do you think about the NIBC, Ani? Obviously, it's great talent. A lot of the nation's good players are there. Sunrise has a great team with Mark Mitchell, Cam Corn, Layden Blocker. They got a lot of contributors. Obviously, they may not have the star power that they had last year with their two big guys. Obviously, Kendall Brown's at Baylor now, and the point guard who's at Tennessee.
Kennedy Chandler.
Yeah, Kennedy Chandler. Like they had a quote unquote star power, but like Grady Dick and this group are really good, and they're obviously sitting at number 1 right now. So, what's your take on the NIBC and what's your take on Sunrise?
Man, I'm loving NIBC right now. Just seeing, you have a compilation of really high level talent, top 100 guys and 4 or 5 star guys and guys that are potentially pros just kind of going at each other. And then NIBC, obviously there's tiers. Like I have like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 of a team. So it's a little bit top heavy, but there's only 8 teams. So it's not anything crazy or out of mind, but I really do like it. It's something that kind of brought up, and I don't want to be like the rumor guy, but you do some stuff came out like some teams in NIBC play teams outside the NIBC that are really talented. Will they play those games to or not play those games because they want to get into Geico? You see what I'm saying? Like that
losses. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't believe that, but that is something that has kind of came about. And but I think the overall concept of NIBC, I love it. And just kind of just seeing just the guys going at it, and being able to see Sunrise play Montverde twice, and then see it on TV is great. And it's a really good, for me and you that are evaluators, this is a really good evaluation piece but for Sunrise, I love watching Grady Dick. Just seeing him just really shoot the basketball, showing his kind of offensive versatility and shot creation has improved. It's been fantastic. Mark Mitchell's he's back and he's healthy. And watching them in the beginning, because they came down to Dallas for like there's a scrimmage. But Kellen Buffington ran a scrimmage, and they didn't look very good at the time, right? Mark Mitchell obviously didn't play, but they were kind of struggling a little bit. But seeing how they are, they're peaking at the right time. They got other pieces. I love Scotty Middleton, he's very talented. Just an X factor type guy. Just get a lot of stuff done, makes shot maker and stuff like that. But really, really been impressed by Sunrise just as a team collectively. They just the pieces just mesh well. Yeah. What do you think? Just kind of following Sunrise as well, just from when you kind of first saw them to now, kind of just how they made their jump.
Yeah, I think, like you said, they're playing together. Grady Dick is very underrated, I think, nationally, because again, he was their 3rd or 4th best player last year, and I just think they got some pieces that fit. Last year they'd run a lot of ball screen for Kennedy Chandler, and they kind of went as he went. This year it seems like they I guess share the sugar a little bit more. Maybe the ball movement is good. And again Cam Corrin's a good player. They really defend. Mark Mitchell's coming on. So you got to really like their whole package of players. And again, there's still a lot of season to go. These teams got to play 3 more sets of games. A lot of that will take place at Hoop Hall this weekend. And, obviously COVID permitting, let's pray that those games all go off without a hitch. And that's in Springfield, Massachusetts, whereas the Bass Pro's in Springfield, Missouri. So I like what they bring. The program has finally got to number 1. They've been on the cusp. Again, you talked about seeing those high-level teams play each other. Oak Hill will play La Lumiere. La Lumiere will play Sunrise. Sunrise will play Montverde. Montverde will play IMG. And, they're going to beat up on each other a little bit, but me doing the rankings now close to 20 years, it's like I know that, so I know that I can't drop them too much. Like you said, it's a little top-heavy. Legacy and Wasatch got some work to do. They're not doing too good in conference right now. But Oak Hill's been a little up and down. They've had a few good games where they look great and then didn't look great. So Sunrise was geared for this weekend. I talked to Coach Luke Barnwell, and he thought they didn't play too good in the first meeting with Montverde. So they were really geared up to play really well in this second meeting. So it's very interesting. Like you said, I like the high-level games, the high-level players. Again, most high school elite players are not going up against another elite guy at their position in an average high school game. They're just not. They're playing out of position. They're playing center. They're going to be 2 guards and in college, but they're playing center in high school. And I want to give a shout out to the old school guys, because that's how you had to evaluate. Right now it's a little easier to evaluate at Montverde or Sunrise when you're evaluating top 50 guy, top 100 guy, because they're playing their college and NBA position.
Right.
30 years ago, when you're watching some guy and he's 6'6", you have to project him as a two guard or a wingman. Well, he's playing center, for his high school team. There's a little bit less of that nowadays. Guys want to, and that's a big reason why guys want to go to a prep school. They're already thinking, again, I think it's a little faulty, but they're already thinking way ahead. I need to play the position I'm going to play in the pros, So I understand that mindset. I think, again, sometimes guys are jumping the gun just a little bit, but I like the fact from that standpoint that guys are guarding each other, that are going to play each other in college and potentially in the NBA, rather than a guy 6'8" and he's by far the tallest player on the court.
No, I'm with you on that. And like you said, you hit a great point. Just in the high school games, you don't, an elite level player is either going to play out of position, or he's not going to be going against anybody of like talent, or even halfway like talent. So like your sample size and just evaluating is just different. Many times you probably will see a kid and you're like, okay, you probably have a projection of what or what he can and can't do, but you want to see him. You probably go through their schedule and say, okay, I'm gonna catch him again against so and so to get a better feel for it. Right. And even like your shout out to like like I know I've had the luxury to evaluate in the summer, right, where the guys generally going to play more of their natural position, and then like with the NIBC and just these high level prep schools, getting to see them play against other high level teams. So I can only imagine just like how hard it was just to evaluate at the time. And the game has obviously changed, right? So like, a kid that is 6'6", that's going to play at the wing at the next level, he may be more of a back to basket, or may like be a 12 to 15 foot face-up guy, because that's how the schemes were at the time. So
yeah, it's definitely different. It's like you said, there's more evaluation, good evaluative opportunities, I think now. That's the difference. So we'll see if the NIBC continues to grow, if they add teams. Obviously, I'm very closely monitoring that. I know the guys who created it and run it. So it's something I've always kept close an eye on, because I've been doing national rankings. So I still like to see the great high school teams. I love what Corona Centennial does here in Southern California. And speaking of a public school, let's talk a little bit about Camden, number 5. This is a big week for them. This is the week that they're kind of gearing up for. They have Montverde Academy on Thursday. So by the time you listen to this, they're going to be really getting ready for that at the Metro Catholic. They have Calvary Christian, who did pretty well down at the City of Palms. They're coming in at number 19. They only have a loss to Milton. They're 10-1 right now. And then they also play Milton on Monday. So they play at the Hoop Hall. This is Camden. Those are 3 big games. What do you think about them? Can they run that gauntlet, or are they going to drop one of those games? Can they break into that mold and beat a Montverde, or are they just going to kind of be with the pack, or are they really have a chance to be in the number 1 spot by the end of the season?
Yeah, I really like Camden. I kind of see him play a little bit. Obviously, Wagner, fantastic player, but they have size, they have athleticism to play fast. This week, it's a gauntlet. It's tough. I mean, for me to project them to beat Montverde, Calvary Christian, and Milton in a week span, that's tough.
4 games. That's 4 days, basically.
Yeah, like I don't see that happening. Okay. I do see them winning 2 games. Now, do I see them beat Montverde? I think that's going to be a really, really interesting game. It wouldn't surprise me if they do, but it's going to be very, very tough. And then but I think they'll drop 1. I think for sure they'll drop 1. But I believe they'll win 2. Now, them being number 1, it just it's
a tough gauntlet to get there,
right. And But I definitely think, they're a top 5 team in the country. I think they stay there. They're really I just like the way they play. They get up and down. They'll press you. They'll get after it.
They get after it.
Yeah.
And they beat some good teams in the live period, and they beat some good teams this fall. And when I say the live period, I mean in the NCAA live period.
Yeah, in June.
In June, they played as a team. So, they have a great team. They got, like you said, if you can get a chance to watch those games this weekend, obviously they'll be on they'll have at least one ESPN game. Hopefully, fans, you can watch the Metro Classic, and that's a really good event. So yeah, that's a big step up for them. They've won 5 games. Make sure you go to ballislife.com to check out the complete FAB 50. Obviously, we went over the top. This is a big weekend. This typically is a big weekend. It's a little shaky out west, just with the the COVID mandates. We're not sure if there's going to be 8 games at one venue like there's been in the past, but I'll be watching it. I'll be following it. Bishop Gorman, which is still undefeated, has a big game against Coronado this Saturday. Bishop Gorman's 13 in the FAB 50. They play Coronado, won 2 games down at Hoop Hall South, so they're playing pretty good ball right now. And Liberty's trying to rebound from that heartbreaking loss. They play Durango now. Obviously, Liberty's beat Faith Family, and Faith Family's still doing pretty good. So we'll catch those games and see how they go from there. But I think as now we're going to wrap this one up. We appreciate everybody tuning into episode 111 of the Ball is Life in the Paint show. Again, make sure to check out ballislife.com. Check out our other podcasts, Unapologetic, Buckets and Breakdowns, Noble and Roosh, It's in the Game. You can find all those on our .com. And make sure you go to our online store. That is shop.ballislife.com. And check out all of our latest Balls Life lines and get yourself some gear. Let us know what you think. Give us some feedback. Make sure you like, subscribe. But until next time on the In the Paint show, Ronnie and Ani are logging off.
Peace.